story. The story of a very famous medium by the name of Margery Crandon of Boston. Margery Crandon of Boston was born in the year 1888 in Princetown, Ontario, on highway to just west of Paris, Ontario, a little south of Kitchener, where we live. At the age of 16 in 1904, she left home for Boston, and working as a secretary for some religious organisation, not spiritualism, is all right, she met a man who was a grocery store owner by the name of, let me wait for a minute, what was his name? Rand anyway. I'll give you the rest when I get home. I'll phone you up, okay? She met him, and after a short courtship, they were married. A son was born to this marriage, but the marriage failed. At the age of 30 in 1918, she met, out of a common interest, because she'd always, from a very young girl, had the gift of mediumship. And she met a doctor by the name of Leonard. Dr. Crandon held a very eminent position as a lecturer and teacher in the medical school of Harvard University. He lived in a very affluent part of Boston, and he had another interest. Apart from the psychic world and mediumship, he was very interested in genealogy, and he traced his heritage back to the Pilgrims when they landed at Provincetown on Cape Cod in the year 1620. Now, Pilgrims were Puritans, you see, and so he was at this innate association with the world of spirit, because the Puritans used to practice what we do. They talk to spirit, and sometimes, like when we're young, your mother says to you, well, who are you talking to? And then you make up some wild excuse. That's what I used to do anyway. But I never got away with it because they knew what I used to see. Okay? So, in around about 1923, they decided between them, that is Dr. Crandon and Margery, that maybe they should invite a few people that they knew, that they would select, because you have to be a bit careful, otherwise people think you're crazy, that we would hold a circle for table tipping. And when they organised the table tipping circle, Margery's teacher came through, Walter Stinson. Walter Stinson was Margery's brother, who lost his life in a rail accident in 1911. I omitted a little bit at the beginning because Margery Crandon was named when she was born Minor Margery Stinson. He informed the circle through voice, through direct voice, which is part of mental mediumship, that Margery was a very powerful medium. And as they progressed through the series of these circles going, because they captured the imagination of the people that they invited, and they were very interested in hearing more, because they had their spirit loved ones speaking to them by direct voice. They decided later on in 1923 to invite a friend of Dr. Crandon's, who he knew quite well, a man by the name of Professor William McDougall. Professor McDougall was the head of the psychology department of Harvard University. And the reason why they were bringing him into the circle was, although he had no ideas of mediumship, they wanted to test the gifts of Margery upon these, not expert, but people with a scientific background. And so Professor McDougall, with many of his instructors and teachers, decided they would examine them. But because they had no experience of mediumship, they said, we will only evaluate those areas which were scientifically inclined. And at the end of 5 months of testing, and many explanations having to be given, they came up with a decision that 80% of what they were witnessing, they had no idea where it came from. But they did like the messages they received from Walter Stinson, especially the lectures, except when he reached the parts when his language was very colourful. So this they couldn't understand, you see, but you have to understand that when we pass over, you're not going to suddenly acquire wings. You're going to be exactly the same. And if you use colourful language, they will use that colourful language, and sometimes they do it here, and you've heard me when I've been here before say, we can't talk like that. And then off we go, but you get the understanding. But in 1924, the magazine Scientific America advertised. They advertised for mediums who were willing to demonstrate their gifts, where they would demonstrate a gift where there would be a definite proof of their psychic phenomena, abilities. And so, because this very beautiful, precocious Canadian lady was willing to sacrifice herself for science, they decided that they would demonstrate for the committee organised by the magazine Scientific America. The editor of the magazine, Mr. Malcolm Bird, was one. Another one, a psychic researcher by the name of Hayward Carrington, who was always negative towards the work of mediums because he wrote his books in a negative sense because it sold lots of books to like people in the Bible Belt of the US and areas like that. And another very well-known, in fact world-famous magician by the name of Harry Houdini also sat on this.